websites kind of evolve, right? So when I first
I know.
launched the company, the brand was really all focused around menopause and cool products for hot women. And I thought, well, that's going to be just a gangbuster market. It's like a $6 billion market. There are, 20 million women in the US right now that are menopausal. But the thing is, they're not spending money on themselves. And so what we found out when we looked at other retail trends is that mother baby outpaces menopause by like 6 to 1 in sales.
Wow.
This is a website in transition, and I don't, it's not where it needs to be, but I've really tried to shift it to include more new moms, mother baby, kind of the whole continuum of women's healthcare. And so the website is also a story that's usually constantly evolving, and trying to figure out how to do that without reshooting everything too, and trying to pivot that has been a challenge. The Onyx site was always really clearly defined. I knew what the story was for that site, and so I think that one's cleaner and crisper. But Opal is a site in transition, and part of the reason that's not finished either is because we're talking to some major retail partners, and if we end up going with one of them, it kind of just becomes all about that story.
Welcome back to Over a Pint, the podcast that puts the focus on the fast-paced world of marketing told through the eyes of industry veterans. There's no theory here. This is real-world practical experience, and this is episode 22. Today, I'm joined by my usual partners in crime, the president of Celtic Advertising, Mr. Brian Meehan, partner and vice president of Celtic Advertising, Kurt Lingle, and myself, director of new business development at Acedia, Pat McGovern. Today, we are happy to have on Tammy Lee. Guys, Tammy and I go way back, so this is really cool reconnecting with her. Tammy is an amazing woman with a killer resume. Tammy, I'm not going to go into that. I want you to do it because it's freaking impressive. But what I will say is Tammy is CEO of Xena Therapies. I love this line right now. Cool products for hot women.
Yeah.
This company focuses on rehab/recovery devices. Is that right, Tammy?
Yeah, so we've got two different product lines. By the way, it's great to be on with the three of you today. Patrick, thank you for inviting me. It's been a long time since we've been together. And back to your original question, we have two brands. Opal products are cool products for hot women. So they're designed for women who are new moms or going through menopause or have MS. And the other line of products, Onyx Cool, is cool therapy for active recovery.
Yep.
So same technology, just marketing to two different audiences for purposes of this conversation.
That's awesome, and that's a really, really interesting field. There's a lot of buzz on this, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But Tammy Lee, welcome to the podcast. As we told you before, it's called Over a Pint. It's called Over a Pint for a reason. We usually have a pint of beer, or we have a pint of something. Kurt Lingle, what are you drinking today, my man?
You know, I was explaining to Pat before we started, Irish Fest is starting this weekend on the Summerfest grounds here in Milwaukee. So I went for a stout from Three Sheeps Brewing Company in Sheboygan. It's their Nitro Stout, Cashmere Hammer. I think it's appropriate for the week of Irish Fest. Cheers. Great having you on the show, Tammy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brian, what do you got?
I'm fancy today. I got my Miller Lite.
You got your Miller Lite. Wow.
It's summer, it's warm, it's festival season, so I'm gonna down one of these today.
Top shelf. Tammy, what do you got?
I have an Utepils, and it's a pontoon afternoon. Utepils is made here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this is a side hustle of mine. I happen to be one of the owners of Utepils Brewing Company. So this is one of our seasonal beers. It's a raspberry Kolsch style beer. We make the Kolsch in something for Wisconsin fans that has a Packer theme label too, and we make one for the Vikings that says Skolsch on it. So the Kolsch is our beer.
That's
We make-
That's
great.
awesome.
Wait a second. You're okay. Wow, you're a beer owner too. Okay, well, what's crazy is I'm drinking from Lakefront Brewery. I've got a raspberry Nimbus, which is a raspberry lime ale, which is super refreshing. So that's crazy. We both got a raspberry theme going on here. Awesome. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Tammy, just give us the lowdown about you. Let's start off. Let's just dig right into it because we've got a lot of ground to cover. Like I said, you've got You know what I mean? I hate talking to people like you because I look at my life going, what the hell have I been doing? Tammy, take over. Give us the lowdown on your career and what you're doing right now.
Well, Patrick, what you've done is, stayed true to your heart and passion and stayed in marketing and been incredibly successful about that. Whereas I have ran through many open doors and kind of bebopped around. So started out my career in TV news and then crossed over to politics and then ended up in the airline industry for most of my career, airline and travel industry, which is where Patrick and I first met when we were working for a Milwaukee-based company. So after leaving that company, the Mark Travel Corporation in Milwaukee, I ended up at Northwest Airlines, Delta Airlines, worked as part of the merger team, and then at Carlson Companies doing global corporate affairs and marketing for that company. So most of my career was in corporate affairs and marketing, all external relations. But I ended up accidentally being CEO of a biotech company in St. Paul.
Just accidentally. You just woke up one day, right?
The job that I really wanted, it was a national search to be the CEO of the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, which is something I would have loved doing. And it was really about changing the image of MSP and how you market that to the world and make it a top 10 world-class airport. So that was, I came at that from a marketing perspective. They actually decided they wanted more of an operational flair for that. And I thought they've got plenty of people that know how to operate an airport. They don't have people that know how to market an airport. But when I didn't get that job, I got the call for the #2 role at a company called Recombinetics. And it's a biotech company in St. Paul that gene edits animals to find cures for human diseases. And I must be a good marketer or storyteller because my last science class was 10th grade biology, and I ended up CEO of a genetics company. But that job was not about understanding the science. It was really about telling the story. And what marketers know is it's all about storytelling. And while I didn't know the science specifically, I had partners that worked with me on the team. That's what they were expert at. And I had one person in particular that experienced genetics. So he went out and told the story about Recombinetics and raised $34 million for that company. So I, Patrick, to your earlier comment, if you can tell a story, if you can market, you can really apply that to almost any field. And from there, I ended up at this company, which I founded right before the pandemic in January of last year. And we make cool therapy products in Red Wing, Minnesota. So I transitioned from airline, hospitality, and into healthcare and medtech.
Wow. Wow. So, Tammy, like you said, you had a really, a very, very good career. You were doing a lot of corporate communications, as you said. Then you make the move to become president of the genetics firm. I mean, when you landed there, what were some of just your big surprises of going, whoa? I mean, both good and bad surprises. What happened when you got there?
Well, the story makes a little more sense when you think about what I was doing in the airline, travel, and hospitality industry, running global corporate affairs, government affairs, all external relations. It was really problem solving and fixing messes. And at Delta Northwest, I was part of the merger team. So putting together companies, figuring out business operations. And what Recombinetics really needed was somebody to kind of come and clean it up, get it ready to raise some capital, and then take the story to the marketplace to be able to tell the story about what the science was doing to change people's lives. So the surprising thing for me there was startups are really hard. When you're used to working at big companies with it's really difficult to operate on a shoestring. And they, have been raising capital for most of the 8 years of existence. And I don't think they were telling the story in a way that was attractive enough to investors. So the less I knew, actually, I think the more effective I was because I had to really boil down the science into bite-sized pieces that an investor could understand. And so what was surprising for me, again, comes back full circle. You don't have to be a subject matter expert. You just have to be able to communicate the benefits of that company in a way that other people can understand.
Well, your background, it just really fits perfectly for that. I mean, your whole career has been like doing that storytelling and telling bite-sized pieces in a digestible way that people could get. So I could see where that would be just perfect. Brian, you had a question. Shoot.
Well, yeah, what I really love about your story is, you've been in different industries, but you said there's been that one common theme, and that's marketing and storytelling. And I think a lot of companies struggle with that, and I know people are listening today and they're saying, well, I offer a product or I offer a service and it's this size and it weighs this much, tell them a little bit more about how it is and how important it is to do that storytelling when it comes to marketing or selling a product.
Yeah, well, this is the that you were all in, Brian, and an expert in. And, companies don't fail because it's not a good idea. There are 999 million great ideas out there. They fail because of execution and lack of ability to communicate that to the marketplace. So, for example, the technology that I have, phase change material, this has been around for 30 years. They were using these products in the U.S. military to cool equipment in Iraq and Afghanistan. One of the soldiers came up with the idea of putting it inside their flak jackets to cool themselves. So it was like building a better mousetrap. We just built a better ice pack and taking something that was around and then turning it into different products. So this is a back product. We make it for knees and shoulders. So it was being used in medical settings, in healthcare settings, but it was really targeted more to orthopedics and sports injury. Well, we did take that same concept and turn it into a marketing campaign really targeted to women. So we took, again, that same technology and created a new product called Gal Pals. These are cooling bra inserts. So technology, and that idea actually came from a woman who ran an investment firm, surprisingly. I was actually going to try and raise capital for this company. I was out telling the story about this. I was showed her just a piece of the product, what phase change material is what we use. And went over Starbucks in Minneapolis, and she was having a hot flash, and she stuck the product in her bra. She's like, "Oh, I'm just dying. I need this." I'm like, "Okay." So that's where we got the idea for Gal Pals. It was somebody else showing us how to use the product, and then expanding that into a whole line of women's products for women's health, for new moms, the bra insert, menopause, wrap, the cool pad. So again, it's just a simple technology, just telling the story to different audiences.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic because so many of us before have worked with engineering or sales-driven companies, and they just want to go, fight all the way with features and benefits. Let's just load everybody up. Where the reality is, no, stop for a minute. Nobody cares about that. What they care about is, why did you create this product? What problem does it solve? How is it unique in the marketplace? So I think that's such a great message for our listeners is, features and benefits and engineering products matter, don't get me wrong, but really find the story behind the product that's going to make somebody go, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. So in our men's health or sports injury line, which is really for men and women, cool therapy for active recovery, and the women's health products, cool products for hot women. So really getting down to boiling down what you do.
Yeah.
Something that's catchy enough for people to remember.
Tammy, if I could ask you a question, we talk a lot about the storytelling, and the one thing I'm always fascinated about is not just the story, but the storyteller. And you were kind of going through your career, your life, and Pat, you hit it on the head. Tammy has a very impressive, very diverse path that you've taken. I had a chance to see one of your, I was on YouTube and I saw a presentation you gave. I think it was at some college. I don't remember where it was, but what I found interesting was some of the lessons that you shared. And there were 6 of them, I think, Tammy. But a couple I want to hit on. It was if it's not your cup of tea, find another party. That was one. You can't be a butterfly without being a caterpillar first. And you talked a little bit about, it's not just, it's how you lose matters just as much as how you win. And, when I was hearing you tell your story in that presentation, there was an underlying theme, and it was about, when that door closes, another one opens. And I know persistence was another word you brought up. It's very powerful to you, and I'll let you tell that. But boy, I tell you that seems to be a common theme with you and your career, and you've been living by it, and it's proved to be successful for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, thanks, Kurt. I didn't know that presentation was out in the wild, so I'm going to have to go see my digital.
It's all good. It's all good, right?
That story was Alice in Wonderland. I compared my story to Alice in Wonderland and through the looking glass and falling down the rabbit hole and popping back up again. So the cup of tea thing. So that, again, just kind of trying to find a way to weave together metaphors to tell a story. I do that when I tell a story of my own life to try and connect it somehow. But the theme throughout that was just really about resiliency and persistence. And there are so many times in life when we come up against a brick wall, whether in business or our personal lives, and you've got two choices. You can fight your way through, or you can turn back the other way. And my view is, if you're out in the middle of the lake, you might as well just keep swimming across to the other side. So a lot of time, things don't always work out the way you would hope they would. I mean, I have not always been successful at everything that I've done, but good things have come out of it. I didn't get the airport CEO job, which I really wanted. Because I didn't get that, I ended up as CEO of a biotech company and starting my own company. I ran for Congress in 2006 and lost. And because of that, I got recruited into the Corp Com role at Northwest Airlines and then got to be part of the Northwest Delta team. So I think a lot of people look at failures or setbacks very differently than I do. I look at it as an opportunity to sort of reposition and find a new pathway.
That's awesome. Tammy, let's talk a little bit about your move now into from the biotech into where you're at right now. First of all, so let me throw a couple questions at you. Why the move, right? And then I'm really, really interested in this is now you're not going just to become CEO. You're starting a whole other thing with manufacturing. Okay, that's a whole other level of crazy, right? So just talk to us about why the move, what happens when you just why did you decide to go over and why this product so much? And yeah, go into that. Go.
Yeah. So biotech, as I said, I accidentally ended up there, but when I did that field, healthcare and healthcare services and healthcare products are the wave of the future. So I fell in love with that space. And when I was at Recombinetics, I spent 3 years working really hard, traveling all the time to raise the capital that they needed. And I succeeded in that. Raising the 34 million meant 3 years on the road. And once I completed that assignment, I was ready to do something else. And that's pretty typical of a CEO life cycle. You run really hard, you complete the task, and then you move on to the next thing. For every time in a company's history, there's probably the right CEO. So I did that. I checked the box with the Series A round. And then I really wanted to, if I was going to work that hard, I wanted to do it for myself. And I started out with the thought of trying to raise capital, and then decided that I was just going to self-finance, which is a whole other level of crazy, especially right before a pandemic. But it's the only way to completely control your own destiny. At Recombinetics, we had 468 investors on the cap table, which is a lot.
Wow.
That's a lot of lords to listen to.
Yeah.
Me and my banker are the only two people that I have to care about in this company. And so there's a lot of freedom and flexibility, but there's a lot of responsibility too that comes with that. And the decision to do this on my own was bold. I don't know if it was, smart. To your point, I didn't know anything about manufacturing, but I did have a team of people that had made these similar products before in Red Wing.
Okay.
And I specifically chose Red Wing because it bolstered up areas that I'm not strong in, which is manufacturing and knowing how to do that. There's a team of people that I have there that are retired Red Wing shoe factory workers and Vinyl skate factory workers. So they know how to make high quality wearable products. They're expert at that. They take care of the manufacturing. I have a partner that's the president and COO of the company. He's really good at running manufacturing process, making sure that we've got everything that we need to run an efficient operation. And I'm just out telling the story. I do all sales and marketing all day, all night. All I'm thinking about is how to make the next sale.
Wow. Tammy, clearly throughout your career, you've taken some risks and you've had these, and I'm assuming, oh crap moments, right? When you're very entrepreneurial driven, clearly. Can you point back, is there something in your DNA that makes you who you are? Or was there something in your earlier life that helped shape you to kind of be this person, this leader, this driver that you are? I'm always interested in terms of like, what was your makeup like? Or did you just learn it? Or is it like, no, this is just, I'm wired this way. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Kurt, that's an interesting question. I remember as a child, my parents always used to say that I would always raise my hand for things. I would always volunteer for things. I like trying new things. My first job out of college was in TV news and reporting, so storytelling, learning new things, being really curious about learning new things. So I think that's a part of it. But also, I think unbridled optimism, which is both a blessing and a curse. I mean, there's something missing in my frontal lobe or somewhere that doesn't show danger. Like I said, things that I always think that I'm way more optimistic than I ever should be, but things generally work out okay. And it's also, I guess, just a belief in being able to figure things out. That, it's like being in the middle of the lake, like I said before, and finding your cross. It's to just keep going. And there have been a lot of times during the pandemic where I have been out of cash because I self-financed and even now, I mean, we've got an opportunity to probably do nearly $1 million in sales from these 3 promotions. To do that, that means I have to put in $100,000 this month to get all the supplies we need for that.
Yeah.
So that's not big money at Delta or Northwest. That's big money when it's your own job.
Wow.
But you have to bet on your belief in the products and your ability to execute against the sales marketing strategy. So I don't know. I don't know, Kurt, what it is other than just absolutely blinded by optimism and in the products that we sell.
It's a great motto, blinded by optimism. I really like that. What's I think interesting for entrepreneurs that are listening to this too is listen to what Tammy said is you're focusing on the things that you do really well, the marketing and the storytelling, and then you're bringing in people and surrounding yourself with a team that can help you execute in other areas where maybe you're not as familiar. And I think that's so important when you're an entrepreneur starting a business is you have this tendency to think you got to do it all and you have to be a master of it all. And I think there's some pitfalls with that. I love the way you've brought people into that. One question I had for you, the pandemic is such a big story. We all know that there was tremendous downside to business last year, but being an optimist, I want to get from you, what did you learn from it to make yourself better? What kind of marketing tools are you coming away with to become a better marketer? What were some of those lessons you've learned?
Yeah, Brian, we learned things that would work and things that wouldn't work. And our products are not easily explainable on a website or Amazon or Walmart. They're really tactile. You need to see, feel, and touch them. So you need to be able to demonstrate them. So when the pandemic started, it started after we opened the factory. We could not go in and demo these in hospitals and gyms and facilities and places where we normally would be. So we pivoted to trying to sell online, bought a lot of keywords, did what typical people would do. But if people don't know about your product, they're not going to understand it from a keyword or a pay-per-click campaign, and they're not going to understand it on Amazon or on Walmart. So I went to trying to do kind of, again, capitalize on my own strong suit, which is marketing. We got our products. I got our products on Good Morning America. I got our products on The View. I demoed our products on QVC. So going to places where I would have a natural audience to tell the story, because it's a show and tell product. It's not something that find. And it's also premium.
Tammy, you broke up a little bit there, right? And you said, hey, this is a show and tell product.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So give us that again.
So products are easily described in a campaign. These are show and tell products that you really need to see demonstrated and touch to want to buy them. And they're also a little more expensive than other competing ice or cold therapy products. So to differentiate them, it's a visual story. And so we went to visual mediums. We went to national television. We went to QVC, and tried to get as much traction as we could that way, which kept the plant open, kept sales coming in. And each one of those things attracted other people in more traditional channels. So we've done everything backwards, kind of like Alice in Wonderland down the rabbit hole, like what we were talking about earlier, Kurt.
Yep.
We did everything backwards. So now all of those things that we've done are attracting more traditional distributors that we'll go to market with.
So Tammy, where do you stand right now with the product? How are you feeling about the growth, the trajectory of where things are going?
Yeah, well, I'm very hopeful, or I wouldn't be making the next big investment.
Right.
We are going to be on. There's a national ad platform called Local Steals and Deals, which they buy remnant TV in every market, and everybody thinks it's their own local deal.
Yeah.
But it's like a pay for play revenue share thing, and then America Steals and Deals with Genevieve Porter. We're going to do that as well. So we try and differentiate the brands on different platforms, like Opal. The products for women are all going to be on Steals and Deals, and America Steals and Deals will help Onyx on it, and that'll be a 6-month campaign. And again, it's visual. So if we do a little better than break even on that, those TV spots always attract other distributors, other partners, other retailers. So I really view that as a paid advertising campaign that I break even on. So, I mean, I've kind of gone at this very differently than most other manufacturers or probably marketers. I've found any space that I could that gives us the medium to tell the story.
Wow. Tammy, it's just so impressive listening to you talk about this, just because we've had other CEOs on there, and CEOs just have a tendency to either come up from a lot of times come up from the finance side of things, right? So they're looking at, or a lot of times the operation side of things, right? Where you have that whole, I mean, you just like marketing, you just get it, man. You just totally, this is just part of your DNA. So I got to ask you this, Tammy. You've accomplished a ton of stuff. You've been in the game a while. Give us some of your, I want to know some of your like habits. What are some of the things that you do to stay as, productive, to stay as enthusiastic, to stay as optimistic about things as you do? Because I just look at you and I'm hearing the things that you're saying, and I'm like, my mind's getting blown. So what are the secrets?
I drink good beer if I can. The thing that I do that I really started right before the pandemic is a new habit, playing tennis. I hadn't played tennis, and I'm not good at tennis, but you don't have to be good at something to love it. And that's been the best stress relief for me. And I try and do that 3 or 4 days a week. It's the only time I take time out of being online or trying to sell stuff to do that. And I think that really helps me sleep better at night. Everybody says that you need some sort of a habit or a passion. And for me, that's been the passion for me. So that's been good. And then, every so often you have a win. We land another national TV appearance or something good happens. But there are so many times that there are so many dark days, and it's so lonely when you're an entrepreneur. You don't have the support of executives at Delta Airlines. And to your point, if I think this being focused on the marketing and not the finance. If I came up through finance, I would have thrown in the towel 6 months ago because the numbers were horrible during the pandemic. I lost so much money. Thankfully, I have an MBA, but I'm a marketing MBA, not a finance MBA, and I don't even look at the bank statements.
That's fine.
Back to one of your other responses, what I think is really important for people that are listening to take away is when you moved into the pandemic and realized that, hey, this is a high touch type of product, I need to demonstrate it. You didn't throw your arms up and say, well, I can't go see anybody. We're all closed down. Let's just move on to the next project. The reality is pivot, right? It's find a different way of demonstrating that product. And I think that's so important for people. And one of the big things I'll take away from today's conversation is just always be thinking about a different approach, a different way, and never let it be a roadblock.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's just that persistence, just keep going, just keep swimming. Because so many businesses, entrepreneurs finally get to their breaking point and they give up. And it might just be one more thing that they need to do. You know, if you listen to the podcast on National Public Radio, How I Built This, great
Yeah.
podcast. I've listened to probably 50 of them, and the arc of the entrepreneur is very similar for all
Yep.
successful entrepreneurs. They are at death's door, their business, and they decide to just do one more thing that they're too tired to do or didn't want to do, and that one thing is the thing that saved their company. I think too many people come to the edge of the cliff and just decide to turn around and walk the other way
Mm-hmm.
versus thinking, oh, there. I come to the edge of the cliff and think, well, somebody's probably going to hand me a parachute here. So
I think the space that you're in right now, Tammy, is super interesting, and I say that because when I just look at like kind of sports rehab, just as one example, right? And you see athletes until very recently on the field, off the field, they've got an ace bandage with a bag of ice. I mean, it can't get more like basic than that. I mean, there's no style, there's no design, there's no kind of like new technology. Now I'm starting to see that. I'm starting to see that more and more take hold. So I think this is a space that really you've got the wind in your sails as you go forward.
yeah, Patrick, that's a great point, but it's also like how you go to market with it. And one of the things that I've also learned during the pandemic, we can't be all things to all people. So I've really focused on looking for other distributors that are already established and have a foothold in that space, and trying to find partners that just want to distribute the either as Onyx Cool or as their own private label.
Hmm.
And I think that's another lesson I've learned as an entrepreneur. There are a lot of entrepreneurs that don't want to give up their brand.
Yeah.
It's like their baby, it's their identity. For me, you could call it Onyx Cool, you could call it Pat's Cold Pack, you could call it, Kurt's Feel Good Gal Pals, Brian's Cold Wrap, anything you want. You can put any label on it you want, and I'll sell it, I'll make it. So the other thing is figuring out if you're a marketer or you're a manufacturer, or are you both? And right now we are both. The brand that I love that I've got a lot of ownership over is Opal, because I love it because it's really focused on women's health. But I'm working at finding partners that want to take on parts of the brands or own the brands exclusively that already have market share.
Gotcha. Interesting. Tammy, talk to us about just like because everybody we talk to, it seemed to be having issues with supply chains, just product getting stuff. How has that been impacting you as well?
Yeah, so I work day and night to try and get some of these national promotions, and all three have happening within a 4-week window of time.
It's amazing.
We're like the dog caught the car.
Yeah.
And I don't have enough fabric, I don't have enough poly, I don't have enough elastic. A lot of our lead times are 12 weeks out, or you can't get it. So we're just scrambling to figure out how to make some of these orders work, and hope that because they're long-term promos that we'll be able to sort of manufacture just in time.
Yep.
But not only are lead times much longer, but the cost of raw goods has gone up, 20 to 30% in some cases with long lead.
Yeah.
That's really hard. And for us, I didn't want to be sitting on a lot of inventory when we weren't selling anything. So I got really behind in having raw goods on hand. And then all at once, I got 3 yeses. So that's a good problem to have.
Right.
I spent all weekend, not doing something super exciting and fun, but looking for white elastic in 2, 4, and 3 inches, or black elastic, different suppliers. And my typical elastic supplier is not selling that. So going on Amazon and finding like, what can I find? Well, then you're buying it at retail, not wholesale prices, and looking to see if I can find the retailer. And I called a factory directly last week. I'm not good at that kind of sourcing, but I guess it's like being a reporter and trying to uncover a source. I'm just like digging for sources everywhere.
I'm sitting here listening to you. My heart is racing right now. I'm just like, I just don't have, I could not do what you do, Tammy. You're amazing. And oh yeah, by the way, you decided to get into the beer business. So how does that happen?
That happened before the pandemic, which was a good thing. And the brewery started about 3 or 4 years ago. And during the pandemic, we had an outside patio, and in January, which is always the worst month for hospitality at bars and restaurants, was our absolute best month because we had an outdoor patio. So again, creating a differentiator that people wanted to do, and social distancing, and every spot had its own little fire ring. People would wait outside in the January winter for an hour and a half to get a spot outside. So, we
Wow.
what was, just trying to lemons.
Wow. Wow.
Tammy, I got a question for you. So I want to, clearly through your career, you've had a chance to be a part of some great teams, and you've had a chance to build some great teams, I'm sure. And I go back to that presentation you gave because I really did think that was an interesting presentation that you gave. And you said something interesting. You said, I have the confidence because I know what I don't know. And to me, that says this is someone that understands the importance of team and surrounding themselves with very talented individuals that fill a void that maybe you don't have, or maybe they can accentuate different parts of the team. Talk about the type of individual you like to hire. Obviously there's the expertise, but talk about their DNA. Who does Tammy like to bring onto her team? What do they need to have?
Yeah, so in every case, it's been people that have the right attitude and aptitude. So there are people, I've hired people in marketing jobs that didn't have a marketing background, but you knew that innately they were good at storytelling or very organized and just had a feel for it. So it's, unless you're hiring for something specific, like in the laboratory at Recombinetics, there are people that have that skill set. But more often than not, it's the attitude that people have. And at the plant in Red Wing, every person can do every single other job there. There are people that are better at certain jobs than other. Like there's one guy who does the best filling and sealing. He's better than any of the rest of us. But I run the machines. I punch out the gal pens. I'll run the branding machine. I take out the trash. So really it's that I hire people that are willing to jump in and do anything and everything. And that makes it really fun too, because everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction. Everybody's on the same team. But for people that are the highly specialized, that are really good at operations or really good at finance, you have to hire for that specific skill set. And that is part of the confidence that I have. I know what I don't know, and I'm very willing to admit it. I don't like playing around with Excel spreadsheets. I don't want to know how to do a bill of lading to ship out 1,000 products. I don't want to learn that stuff. I'd rather take out the trash myself than do some of those other jobs.
Tammy, you spent a career, big part of your career in corporate communications. Now you're the head of this company. How important is, and maybe a better way of putting it is this, how do you approach communications throughout your organization right now? Right? What's the Tammy Lee secret on that?
Yeah, you've all been in the space too, where you know that employees know if they're being kind of sold a bill of goods, and all CEOs talk about transparency, but they also have really good corp comm teams that are ensuring that there isn't transparency.
Right.
Relations during bankruptcies and mergers and acquisitions. I know all about non-transparency. But for people to really believe in you, you gotta tell the truth. They have to know what's going on. And as difficult as things have been the past year in the company, everybody knew where we were going. Everybody knew when we were doing a shutdown and how long we were going to be shut down, or to the best of our ability. So I just try and, even if it's not good news, just share it. And when I was in Corp Com, I had the same philosophy: communicate really openly, really freely, and no surprises. When I had to communicate for and to the CEO, it was always no surprises. Make sure that he or she knows where the headwaters are. And so I guess that style's just kind of continued.
Got it. You mentioned one of the things that you listen to is the NPR How I Built This, which is an awesome podcast. Tammy, what else do you read, listen to, consume to stay, relevant, to stay up to the speed on what's going on? What are some of your go-to, either books or podcasts or videos on YouTube? Share with us.
Yeah, so there's there's mind expansion, and then there's just sort of mind candy, right? Like I also love Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History podcast. I love learning about things that have a totally different point of view. But right now I'm watching Manifest, which is kind of an interesting podcast. But during the pandemic, my brain also needed a break too. Like you can't be so serious all the time. So, I binge watched Bridgerton. I binge, which every woman in America that's of a certain age binge watched Bridgerton. What else? And then there were the shows that nobody wants to admit that they watch, but everybody in America did, like Tiger King. What an
Yeah.
absolute train wreck, which made me
Great show.
Yeah.
that was my self-esteem show. I'm like, oh, I'm doing pretty well. Look at him. So there are things that I do for pleasure, and there are things that I love to learn, like the revisionist history, how I built this. Those are great shows. But then there are other things like, Parks and Recreation and shows like that, where sometimes you just got to laugh and get off the grid a bit.
One of the questions that I have, Tammy, is I'm always interested in this is, and you talked a little bit about this, but talk to us about the role of the website that it plays in your organization. How do you view it, as a marketing channel?
Yeah, so and websites kind of evolve, right? So when I first launched the company, the brand was really all focused around menopause and cool products for hot women. And I thought, well, that's going to be just a gangbuster market. It's like a $6 billion market. There are, 20 million women in the US right now that are menopausal. But the thing is, they're not spending money on themselves. And so what we found out when we looked at other retail trends is that mother baby outpaces menopause by like 6-to-1 in sales.
Wow.
This is a website in transition, and it's not where it needs to be, but I've really tried to shift it to include more new moms, mother baby, kind of the whole continuum of women's healthcare. And so the website is also a story that's usually constantly evolving, and trying to figure out how to do that without reshooting everything too, and trying to pivot that has been a challenge. The Onyx site was always really clearly defined. I knew what the story was for that site, and so I think that one's cleaner and crisper. But Opal is a site in transition, and part of the reason that's not finished either is because we're talking to some major retail partners, and if we end up going with one of them, it kind of just becomes all about that story.
Right. Tammy, this has been incredible. Look, at what we like to do with all of our podcasts is the guest has the last word. So the mic is yours, Tammy. Where do people find you? How do they find out more about your product? Whatever plug you have, now is the time. Hit away.
Well, thanks, Patrick, and thank you all for the time today. So the Opal products are at opalcool.com. Cool products for hot women, new moms, women who are of every stage and age of life, and women who have MS. Onyx is really focused on sports medicine and injury repair, and that's onyxcool.com. And the last word really is to all entrepreneurs, women or otherwise, is don't give up. Just keep going. But go in ways where you're very focused, because I think that the challenge and plight of entrepreneurs is trying to do everything for everyone. And the only way you can succeed is to really narrow in on who is your target audience and how are you going to talk to them. Otherwise, you spend a lot of money and spin your wheels, and it becomes very difficult. So I guess that's the closing word. And that's Menopause Awareness Month and Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We'll do really fun things with Opal Cool to support women who are breast cancer survivors. So I think the final word is trying to tie your business life to your personal life and passions, so that all things can kind of be in harmony.
Great
Tammy
advice.
Tammy Lee, thank you so much. It's great seeing you again. Good luck with everything. You're amazing. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
This was awesome. Thank you, Tammy.
Great job, Tammy. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.